Yo, welcome to the Outside the Box podcast. This is your favorite podcast, people. That was produced by one of the greatest producers in the world. Anyway, hey guys, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you. See, this is why I shouldn't start the show. Someone else should start the show, because every time I start the show, there's some sort of ignorance that goes on, and you guys just laugh, and that just pushes me to do it even more. So, welcome back to the show. Hope you guys enjoyed the last episode. Last episode, we talked about Jordan sportswear, which is going to be a thing. And, you know, you guys had your opinions about it down in the comments, and we appreciate you guys giving us that feedback and letting us know how you thought about it. That's what makes this show what it is, the back and forth conversation that we're having. But this episode, we have a lot of good stuff planned for you guys. As you guys know, this show has 3 people on it. I am the bad seed. If there was like 3 great, your parents have 3 children, one of those children doesn't really live up to the other 2. That's me. I'm that kid. I'm Jacques Slade, aka Cousteau. You can find me all over the internet under that same name. And the 2 good siblings, the good kids, the ones that got A's and took AP classes. That's Nick Engvall and Tiffany Beers. Nick, tell them where they can find you.
I don't know if I can live up to all this credit that you're giving me here. You can find me at Nick Engvall, NickEngvall on all platforms, or at Sneaker History or sneakerhistory.com. But really, I think I fill the void that, or fill the position that Jacques describing there with the bad seed. I'm always the one that's encouraging, the little devil on the shoulder, encouraging the trouble. But most importantly, we're both here just to learn from Tiffany. And Tiffany, let them know who you are and how they can find you.
I'm Tiffany Beers. You can find me at Tiffany Beers on YouTube or Instagram. And I had some bad seed days, but I wouldn't characterize myself as a bad seed. I mean, I research and build Excel spreadsheets. If that's being bad, then I'm super bad.
Wow, that's see, you're pushing the limits there, Tiff. Be careful. Would you watch that behavior? Wouldn't want you to get yourself in trouble doing Excel sheets and research. I was today on Twitter. There was the 30 for 30 for, I think it's for Reggie Miller. There was a clip of it, and I felt like that's what happens every time we get on the podcast with Tiffany. Reggie scored 40 in a game one day, and he came home and he was in the car with his parents and his sister, and he's kind of hyping himself up in the backyard, telling everyone, I had 40 points. We did this to them, we did that to them, we beat them down, blah, 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 like kind of bragging, being a little braggadocious about the game. And after he goes through all that, he's like, so sis, how'd you do in your game tonight? And she's like, I scored 105. I was like, wow.
I mean, just imagine having a sibling who's quite possibly the greatest athlete of an entire sport, and all of women's basketball. You could argue that Cheryl Miller is the best. She's like the Michael or LeBron of women's basketball to me. I can't even imagine.
Yep.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy. You come home, you have a great game. I had 40. We crushed them. What about you? Oh, I had 105. Oh,
it's amazing.
Great. Thanks. That makes me feel wonderful. I say all that to say that's how I feel every time we have this podcast with Tiffany. With that being said, let's hop into something that had me super excited this past weekend. Tiger Woods finally won a golf tournament after 5 years. Was it 5 years? I think it was 5 years of not winning a tournament, being written off. People saying that he would never win again and that his career was over. Then he had the back problems, and he came back and won this weekend. And it wasn't even a major. It was just a regular PGA tournament event. But it was huge, and it shows you the effect of Tiger on the game of golf. I'm an avid golfer. I love the game. I love to play the game. I don't play as much as I used to, unfortunately, but I do really love the game, and I do watching Tiger play. But it was just amazing. One of those things where, like, if you were watching or if you were actually there, like, there was so much energy in the room, and shows you how one athlete can really have such an effect on a game and on just culture in general. I feel like him doing that, and like, it just brought an energy to golf in general that hasn't been there for a long time. And there's very few athletes that I think can actually do that.
Yeah, I think that, the only other person that comes to mind is Michael, right? Like, and in terms of like golf, like, we've had the conversation about tennis being like such a overly traditional sport, and I think that golf is kind of similar. And Tiger, like kind of doesn't push the limits of golf in the ways that, like, like we talked about, like Serena or Andre Agassi or John McEnroe on that side of things. But like Tiger is really, like, it reminds me of Michael Jordan, right? It's like he's so good that, like, people that normally would never pay attention to the sport will just, like him winning will literally kick off like 6 months to a year, hopefully, depending on people's attention span, but like to new people into the sport, which, that just doesn't happen anywhere else that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, Tiger, I have to say, like, when I started at Nike, this was like 2004, right? Tiger was very big at that point. Like, I had a secret crush on him. He was my favorite athlete by a landslide. I mean, you walked into the Tiger Woods building at Nike, and there's these giant pictures of Tiger Woods, and like, all I ever wanted to do was like meet Tiger Woods. And I never actually got a chance to, but I got a chance to go when Keegan Bradley joined Brand Jordan. I was the developer and innovator on his product with Mark Smith. And I got to go to, like, I actually had a PGA card. And I got to go to the tournaments to work with him and make sure his shoes and everything were working out okay. And, a couple times, like, oh my gosh, there's Tiger. Tiger's over there. But the energy and the people surrounding Tiger Woods and actually watching golf at the tournament is so amazing. And, like, I'm super stoked for Tiger. I'm so happy he won this past week. And, the week before, Keegan Bradley won, and he hasn't won since like 2007 or something like that. So great year for Nike Golf, whatever's left of Nike Golf. But
the remnants of Nike Golf.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Tiger's had some downfalls over the years. He's had some issues, which has definitely lowered him on the totem pole that I had him on. But I think it's super exciting. Especially in golf. Golf's a very, very hard sport. And for someone to be such at the top of their game and have so many challenges and issues and come back and win 5 years later, like, for him to not give up and not, like, fall out of the scene completely, right? Like, at one point he was going to be designing courses, right? And he was not going to golf anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so for him to come back and win, I think that's fantastic. I wish him all the most success, and I hope he keeps winning.
Yeah, it's inspiring. It's like it's a movie comeback. Like, that's like, this is the kind of stuff like that happens in movies. Like, you're out for 5 years, or you're out. You have this like it's really like the full on movie like script where you have, like, you win, you do all this winning and everything's great. Then you have this downfall, and then you feel like you're back, and then you fall again. And then you come back, and then you excel and you win again. Like, that's literally how every Hollywood movie is written. Like, there's a problem, you fix the problem, but then it's not really fixing the problem, and the problem gets worse, and then you have to deal with that, and then you win again. It's literally a Hollywood movie written out, like a written out script. No one could even written this any better. But now, today on Twitter, I was talking about whether Tiger is the greatest golfer of all time. So he doesn't have the most wins of all time, at least not yet. He has 80, but Sam Snead has 82. And as far as majors go, Tiger has 14, but Jack Nicklaus has 18. And my argument was Tiger would have to beat both of them in order to be considered the greatest of all time. I feel like just golf is too traditional of a sport for someone to be like, oh, Tiger has the most wins ever. That makes him the greatest. I feel like he'd have to win the most majors, and he'd have to have the most wins of all time for people to finally accept that Tiger is the greatest of all time.
Well, I was going to say, I kind of disagree. Because Tiger's had to face a lot more challenges that those guys haven't.
Yeah.
And in his career's golf, because of the traditional atmosphere of golf, kind of like what we're talking about in tennis right now, with Serena and all these other traditional issues. Like, Tiger's faced a lot of challenges, and, I don't know, I think he could do it. There's still time. I think he could pull it off. In my opinion, he is the greatest golfer of all time. I do believe he is.
I agree. I think people would definitely, I think most people would say that Tiger is the greatest, but then people would argue oh, well, Sam Snead had all these second place wins, even though he didn't win all of them. He finished runner up in a lot of them, and that would have made his number even higher. And then there's Jack Nicklaus, the majors is really what golf is all about, and he didn't win in the majors. So I get it. Trust me, I get it. I feel like if Tiger beats Sam Snead over the next 5 years, if he wins, I think he has to win 3 more tournaments in order to be the leader. You got to give it to the guy. He's done some incredible things and played against some incredible competition at that.
Yeah.
The people, the way that athletes are, I don't want to say manufactured, but the way that they're trained and prepped for the game today is insane. It's incredible how fine-tuned these athletes are today. And for Tiger to be so far ahead of all those guys for all those years, and then to come back at age, I think he's 42, and win again, that just puts him on a pedestal that I think people don't really recognize and people don't respect. But that's just my opinion. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm a Tiger fan and I love the game of golf. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think he should.
I think you're right, though. I think that the traditionalists in the sport of golf definitely will compare to every other person so they can hold on to that. It happens in every sport, but I think for Tiger, the biggest challenge was all of his personal stuff that he went through that kind of took away from his legacy for a while. And I also think that whether you like him as a human being or not, the determination to come back, especially coming so close over the last, what has it been, 18 months, so many times, and now really now winning, and that just speaks to his drive as an athlete, and that's exactly what a brand like Nike is going to see in a person to say, this is why we rock with this guy. The same way that, that's commitment to being the best and showing that you're going to come back from all of these things that should have sidelined you and probably would sideline most people in their lives for, who knows, maybe the rest of their lives, right? I think it's just amazing that he's able to do that. And at 42, golf is a sport you can play for a very long time. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Tiger is leaps and bounds over anybody on the PGA Tour and moving in, onto the senior PGA Tour down the road, and is undisputedly the best golfer of all time.
Yeah, I mean, we can't forget about Jack Nicklaus, though. I mean, amazing runoffs, amazing golfer. But I think the key here that Jacques highlighted is there should be a film. And Jacques, we talked about you acting. We talked about you taking that and stepping in on Will Smith. Yes. I feel like you should play Tiger. You're a golfer. You could do it. Let's see the movie.
I'm all for it. Whatever the talent agencies are, you can reach me at jacques.slade@gmail.com because I know you guys are listening. Just putting that out there. So, quick question. This is going to be a little off topic, but still talking about Tiger. Can athletes, I'll say an athlete or an individual, an inventor or a creator of some type, does their personal life take away for their achievements in their respective fields? And is there like a certain kind of thing that they need to do? This is probably more of like a sociology question. Because I just think of Tiger and how great of an athlete he is. And for all we know, Tiger could still be a terrible, terrible male in regards to what he was doing before. Like, how do we draw a line between those two, or are they one and the same when we talk about that person?
That's such a tricky question. I mean,
Yeah.
like instantly when you asked that question, I thought, okay, let's take Lance Armstrong,
Yep.
right? Like, amazing cyclist. He's still an amazing cyclist. Caught for doping, blurry line, pulled all his championships from him. You barely hear anything about him anymore, right? And that was his professional world, and that had a major impact. Let alone his personal. I think as social media has grown and everyone's in everyone's business constantly, I think you have to separate it a little bit. Like, he can make the personal decisions that he wants. I'm not saying that they're right or he should be, but I do feel like athletes like him, like he's golfed since he was 4? Like, he's been in the media, in the spotlight. Like, just like, Justin Bieber, like, I don't have any clue what that's like, and I'm sure the pressure from that is so, like, people do crazy things. So I, on some level, do think they should be separated, because tremendous athletes are tremendous athletes. Like, that skill, they work so hard for that skill, and that should be respected. I think it should be respected.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's an elevated concern for what athletes do, outside of their professional sport, because of both the political climate in the world right now and the the heightened visibility that we have into their lives. And I think that those kind of things, like, we'll never really be able to separate them, because unfortunately you just can't, right? Like, I think of like LeBron. Like, I've watched LeBron since he was in 8th grade, basically, on ESPN. And to Tiffany's point, like, I can't imagine the pressure that man has had on him since that time. And if I think back to like when I was 16, 17 years old, like, Lord help us all if some of the stuff that I was doing then was out in the public space, right? Like, I would not be proud of myself. I would not, like, I would be embarrassed of some of the stuff that I did back then. And it's not that to say that you can't grow through those things, but when you see people, I think this is what's going to really be a tough thing for athletes moving forward, right? We're going to see more and more of these people, because the instant they have some sort of success on the field, on the court, whatever that is, we're going to go find them on social media. The internet will find them. A 12-year-old kid playing baseball right now might have 50 followers on his Instagram account, but he needs to make sure that he doesn't say anything off from now until his dream of playing professional baseball is done, because unfortunately there are people that will go find, you see it on Twitter all the time, and it works great in some cases. Like politics, it's like great. Like, if this person's a terrible human being, like, we want to know that they've covered up that they were a terrible human being. But the problem is, like, at 12 years old, 13 years old, what do you know as a human being? You don't think about, how is this going to affect me 20 years from now? Like, that just is not a part of growing up, and it shouldn't be. Like, you should be able to just have fun and do what you do, but it makes it to where you're going to have a much harder time learning from mistakes, and because everything is out in the open and seen on social media.
And we talked about last week that the media is overly negative, right? Like the Kaepernick ad, all that was talked about was the negative side. So even if Tiger apologizes, Lance apologized. These people apologize for, not being the perfect role model that everyone expected. The media kind of just glazes over that and focuses on what they did wrong, So it's kind of not a win-win at all for them. And oh my word, if everything I did from 14 until 35 was public knowledge, oh my gosh, that I would be so devastated, and I agree with Nick. Like, it's hard.
And there's even, like, being like a Giants fan and a fan of Barry Bonds and like growing up in that era, like there's so much more to these issues that become issues because there's not consistency from, like let's say, Little League baseball, high school baseball, college baseball, and the pros, right? Like the stuff that a lot of players got in trouble for in the like early 90s in professional baseball was like commonplace in my high school. Like you just took it because it was normal. Like you could go buy it at Rite Aid or the grocery store. Like you could get the supplements, and those supplements, like if you started taking those, which thankfully I never went down that path, but if you started taking those at like, let's say 15 years old, you're used to performing at a certain level with the help of those supplements that potentially, helped you grow as an athlete. And then you hit, a certain level, whether that's college or pro, and it's against the rules. So now all of a sudden you've got this huge, like, potential drop off in your performance because the rules don't allow you to like use the, kind of advantages that you were able to find as an athlete prior. Now you're almost like setting yourself up for falling off the cliff, like how do you even deal with that? And I think like there's so many gray areas, and baseball back then was like the worst of it, right? Like, there were guys that were kicked out of the game for taking steroids, but then there were guys that took steroids that, played for a long time. There were guys that like literally did cocaine in the 80s before games. And like and then they would get kicked out, but they'd get let back in 2 years later. Like it was like commonplace where the rules were just so gray and so inconsistent across all the levels of the sport that created a huge problem that basically went like from the 80s into the 90s and early 2000s. And I think that without that, baseball would probably be a more popular sport still. Like you wouldn't have had all the problems, but because you had all of that drama, it takes away from the fans' ability to just enjoy the game and understand that these people put in a lot of work to become a great athlete. Whatever they did, because like technology, if you think about technology too, like a guy that, especially in NBA, right? Like somebody that rips their Achilles, like DeMarcus Cousins, 10 years ago would have been out for 2 years. 20 years ago would have been the end of their career. Now he's going to be, 9 months, but probably he'll be back on he's already been like shooting around, and it's been 4 or 5 months. Yeah. That's insane that technology allows us to, advance the recovery of those injuries. And, to argue that, like going back to who the greatest is, it's impossible to even compare generationally when you think about like the medical technology that's out now that athletes just never had back in the day.
Yeah, and even back those athletes back then, like if you think about it, they didn't train the way that athletes today train.
Not at all.
Something even they didn't take care of their bodies the way the athletes today take care of their bodies. It's just a totally different era. But keeping it with the golf vibes, since we like to talk about shoes, I was wondering if either one of you could let me borrow $750.
Let me sell my hybrid apps.
Yes. Reason I say that is because there are some people at FootJoy. They take shoes, golf shoes, and they charge you $750 for them. Now, I know what you're thinking. That's a lot for a golf shoe, but this is an investment in my game, and I'm going to be a professional one day, hopefully. So $750 isn't too much to spend, or is it? too much to spend on a pair of golf shoes.
Well, you're an early adopter, right? So yeah, it's okay.
Yes. Yes. I am an early adopter. So the shoes they're basically a luxury take on golf shoes. They're handcrafted. They range from $475 to $750. If that isn't enough, you can get cashmere sweaters that start at $325, or you can get yourself a nice polo that is right in the $165 range. So I'm obviously not the customer that they're looking for. Are there people paying $750 for a golf shoe, and is it just so you can say you paid $750 for a golf shoe? Because I don't see anything about these that makes them feel particularly special, and I think that's more of my issue with the $750 price tag. They just look like something that I can get for $200. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. Am I missing something here?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm looking at it too, trying to figure out like what kind of leather are they using, because it's $750. I mean, even if you use the finest, and they say it's calf skin, the finest leather ever, and they say it's handmade. Well, okay, all shoes are basically handmade. I mean, it's a very manual process. I'm not getting, like, I thought there would be something in them that would tell you that your golf swing was off and this is what you should do, and it always fixes it, or maybe it automatically fixes your golf swing for you. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they're making a lot of money on these, is what I think is happening, you know, and FootJoy has a great reputation in golf too, so I don't get it. I don't see it.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing for me, because like FootJoy isn't a luxury brand. If FootJoy, if like these were like Versace or Gucci golf shoes and they were $750, I would go, okay,
that's cheap.
I get it. Yeah, right. That's cheap. These are on discount. Are you sure these are Gucci? These are not Gucci. These are not Gucci. These are actually Gucci golf shoes. Like, but for FootJoy to do it, and you know, maybe it's just a new market that they're trying to get into. I just don't see. I don't know. I don't see the path. Maybe I just don't see it. Like you said, they're made of calf skin. Okay, that's great. Suede heel pockets and cork layered fit beds. I imagine they mean footbeds.
Yeah.
That mold to your feet over time.
I mean, so do Birkenstocks, and they have cork bottoms.
Yeah,
and they're a bit cheaper.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, it's peculiar, and this looks like they have wood outsoles, which, like, I don't even know if, can you play golf with a wooden outsole? Like, there's like no give, like nothing for your foot to move.
They're leather.
I don't know.
That's leather. Yeah.
Oh, that's leather.
That's layered leather.
Like,
Yep. Yep.
Layered leather, but
yep.
it's just, man, this is, I don't know.
I mean, I think it's.
I mean, golfers are known to spend money.
Yeah, exactly.
That is
like
true.
Tools and tricks and little toys to make them better. So, I mean, if of all the sports, I mean, this does. I mean, I would see golfers paying for it. You know, think of the country clubs and stuff, and
yep.
Yeah, no problem. $750.
Yeah, apparently there's several high-end golf manufacturers, PXG and Miura, Miura, for that they sell high-end equipment in the golf world, and I guess FootJoy is trying to get a piece of that pie. I don't know. When I think FootJoy, I don't think high-end luxury footwear, but maybe they're trying. Maybe this is a branding thing, and they're changing, and eventually I'll think FootJoy, and I'll be like, that's like Gucci, but for golf. But I just don't think that now. Right now, I think FootJoy, and I think, oh, that's like the sneakers of golf. But anyway, maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Part of being a luxury brand is having a name that's hard to pronounce, right? So FootJoy.
Yeah, FootJoy.
FootJoy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's FootJoy. FootJoy. It's our luxury line. Anyway, keeping with stuff that goes on your feet, and this actually has a bit of a golf tie-in. The Air Jordan 33. Now, we talked about this a little bit last week, and the shoe has officially launched, but they're updating the Air Jordan 33 in several ways that I find pretty interesting. One, they've I don't want to say they've abandoned, but they've gone away from the luxury approach of the signature shoe in the Jordan line. And then the second thing is they've removed the laces and they're using these cords for what they call the fast fit system to lock your foot in. And by which I will say works very well. It works very well. But the reason I say it has a golf connection is because golf, particularly Adidas golf, they use the BOA system, which uses, I believe they actually use metal cords, and it looks like for the 33 they're not using metal, but it uses that same system where it kind of cinches closed. You twist the little disc and it locks your foot in, and they actually use it for more than golf. The BOA system, they use it on boots as well. I've seen it on work boots, but I first saw it on golf shoes, and when I first saw the Jordan 33, that's what it made me think of right away. And I guess I'm hoping that it's more functional than just saying, hey, this is cool because we did it on the Nike Golf Tour Premier shoe and we're just putting it in the AJ33. I hope it has some function there, maybe, hopefully.
I mean, I think the kind of like wired lacing system has been around for quite a while outside of even just the golf stuff, right? Like, I know Salomon has been doing that on their trail shoes for probably decades, it seems like, and then Puma did it with a disc back in the 90s, and now it's all retro stuff. So I think it's a cool like attempt to just do something different. I do think it's interesting that they are going away from like the kind of luxury high-end feel that you talked about, but I also think that it's kind of like about time. I love Flight Plate, or I forget what the new version is, but I love Flight Speed. Like, I love that technology. I love the feel of that on foot. But there's nothing about the signature Jordan model that says luxury anymore. Like, there's way too many, other brands making, quote, luxury shoes, even FootJoy, right? So, like, why bother trying to say that we're using better materials when we all know the difference? We all see that certain shoes, I think everybody uses, like, the Shatter Backboard ones as an example, right? Like, the materials on that shoe always seemed so much better than a lot of the other Jordan 1 retros. So, like, if I get a pair of, the new signature Jordan model and it doesn't feel as to that level, but you're still trying to sell it as a premium version or a premium product, then it feels like there's a disconnect there. So I also think that, like, in terms of just, what a shoe does for you on court, premium materials fall far below, like, innovative design and technology on the priority list. And I think this is a good move for Jordan, but I also kind of feel like it's almost overdue, long overdue.
I mean, I think it's, it blurs the lines. When they take the Lux out, it blurs the lines between Jordan and Nike basketball. Nike basketball has never really been Lux. So I wish they would stay more Lux in Jordan. To me, I think it looks a little bit space related, like, futuristic and spacey, which, I don't really associate necessarily with Jordan brand, but I could with Lux. So I think it's interesting the approach they took on it. I'm not seeing an overall negative response, though, in comments and stuff. I feel like it's generally mostly positive. Have you guys seen negative or positive? Or
it's definitely been mostly positive.
I've seen a mix. Yeah. The interesting thing for me is, obviously the look of the shoe kind of plays into it as well. And I feel like the toe down, I'm just not in love with the toe down at all. And I think that's a big thing for me. I think, like, the toe down of a shoe has to look nice to me. When I look down at my shoes, I have to be happy with the way that looks. But the side profile of the shoe, I think it looks great. Like, the side profile looks amazing, but the toe down, I'm just not in love with, and that bothers me. I know it's going to play great. Like, I love Flight Speed, the unlocked zoom, like, that's really great. They have the Cushlon, or a version of Cushlon carrier that looks great. Like it all looks good. But I'm just not in love with the toe down. And then the materials as well, like the mesh at the toe, the textile that they're using at the toe feels very thin. My hope is that it'll hold up to like some rough basketball, but it just feels thin. It's interesting, and it doesn't feel like a luxury or the premium signature shoe from Jordan Brand to me. I feel like if they took that Nike Air logo off the heel, no one would expect that was the Jordan signature shoe. They would think that was just a shoe, inline Jordan. My opinion. I think it's I don't know. It just doesn't seem to have the flair that a signature shoe from Jordan Brand usually has. I like the concept of the flight suit and like the way that the shoes develop, and it has like the flight suit inspiration, how they wrap the layers and the eject and the pull and all those little accents. Like those are great. I think those look really great. I don't know. I'm just not. It just doesn't feel totally signature to me. It doesn't feel premium to me, and that's something that I guess I've always associated with Jordan Brand.
Yeah, I think before I left Nike, I was involved early days on a similar project, and even Hyperadapt, having the ability to micro adjust your laces on the fly. Like that's what I think is actually a luxury thing a little bit. When you think of a BOA and you think of BOA's reels and their knobs, like that doesn't come off luxury, right? It comes off like convenience. But
utility.
Utilitarian, exactly. But actually having that ability to make micro adjustments from the beginning of the game to the end after your feet swell, like from the biomechanics and the blood flow, like that's really important. And I like the idea that they're getting this on basketball shoes, short of not having auto lacing in basketball. Like this gives athletes a way to micro adjust for foot swelling or any kind of foot discomfort versus, having to relace their shoes and take the time out to do that. So to me, that's like a sort of a luxe advantage. This shoe's definitely way more technical, I think, than like maybe past years of flight plate. Like the advantage you're getting, right? You've got that lacing system, you can literally feel it changing, but I haven't seen the shoe yet. And you said, Jacques, that some of the materials seem a little thin, and I know a few people commented that like there's one lace, what if that lace breaks? Like it's not relaceable, so there's definitely some concerns, but it's interesting. I think it's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. How if a lace breaks, like how is that taken care of? I mean, Nike has a great return policy, so I'm not opposed. I mean, if something breaks, you definitely can get it fixed, or get a replacement pair from Nike. So that's not, I guess, too much of a concern. I guess I was just more just like the utility of the BOA and the way that it looks. It just didn't. I don't know. It just for some reason it doesn't scream premium luxury to me, and maybe that's just my old school impression of what I'm supposed to get from Jordan Brand. And I say this not to take anything away from Tate. I think Tate created an incredible product. Like hats off to Tate. Like I love the guy, and the design is great for basketball, and I think it's going to be a cool shoe. It just doesn't scream luxury to me as far as like a Jordan signature shoe. Basketball shoe, I think it's going to be great. But as far as like the prestige, I guess, that I reserve for a Jordan signature shoe, I don't feel that with this shoe.
And I think that's
interesting.
That to me is, I think, the big takeaway, right? The feel of luxury might be missing, but in my opinion, the signature Jordan model hasn't really sold that well in the last 3-4 years. It seems like there's a lot of energy around it when it launches. The launch colorway sells. Maybe, a colorway here and there because they throw a college team on it or an exclusive colorway or something.
Yeah.
But overall, like, you see a lot of really great shoes in the outlets at a pretty heavy discount. So I'm thinking that maybe this is like turning things to the right in terms of sales. Like my kind of marketing background is like, this is exciting for me because there is a lot of positive, feedback out there. There is a lot of people, or there's a lot of energy around it. There's a lot of people talking about wanting a pair that normally I wouldn't see those people saying that. So I'm kind of excited to see how it does from a more of a sales perspective for like the general consumer.
So it sounds like that's
and they knocked
2 surprises from Jordan, selling lifestyle only shoes and a non-Lux signature shoe.
Yeah, and they dropped the price of the signature shoe $10 too, so that should hopefully move and generate some sales. So they went from $185 down to $175.
Wow, so cheaper than the LeBron.
Yeah, cheaper than the LeBron, and then although they're $185 worldwide, but in the U.S. they're $175, which I didn't know there was a difference between the two. But yeah, so that's the new rule: $175 U.S., $185 globally. Is how they're saying it. Just a quick question for you, Tiffany, regarding like the unlacing your shoes during a game. Is there a benefit to that? I always feel like once I loosen my shoes or untighten my shoes, that it kind of gives the fit. You lose the fit, so to speak, because your foot changes because now it has more room to breathe and or grow. Is there a benefit to having that ability, like that quick ability?
I can't say specifically, but from my work on the Hyper Adapt, like so usually when you tighten a basketball shoe, you tighten it super, super tight, right? Because most people are afraid they're going to twist their ankle, right? And so they tighten it up super tight so they have tons of support. And over time, that's constricting the blood flow to your foot. Now, we'd have to get someone, medical in here or biomechanics in here for specifics, but I know that letting the blood flow get back into the foot, refreshes when blood can get back in there, it refreshes the tissues and everything. So it seems like it would make sense that it would provide some sort of refresh. However, that being said, when materials get wet, so as your foot gets sweatier and sweatier, materials will expand, and there's a little bit of play in standard shoelaces. And if there's leathers and knits, they'll expand just slightly based on the moisture, loosening things up a little. And your sock liner will start to compress and, wear starts to happen. So, I think in my opinion, I always thought, what if you threw on a brand new pair of shoes at halftime? Not new, but broken in, right? But dry. What if you put on a dry pair and you relace them based on how your foot's swollen now? Would that give you a better advantage? I don't know. I've never done any studies on this. I'm sure someone probably has, but it's a great question.
Yeah, that is a really great question. Maybe the solution is to create a shoe where you can remove the booty and slide a booty back in that's dry.
Weren't there some Kobe's?
Ever done that?
Some Kobe's with some proprioceptive sleeves.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. That's what I was hinting at. But for those of you that want to get the Air Jordan 33, they release here in the U.S. on October the 18th. They'll be $175, and I think they're released globally on October 4th, but that's only going to be in Asia. And we can't actually get the colorway that's dropping in Asia. There's 2 colorways dropping in Asia. I think we'll get the white, black, and red one here, but the all black and then like the blue colorway will release over in Asia on October 4th, and then October 18th we get to try them on. But I do think they're going to be a fantastic basketball shoe. So if you're looking for a new shoe in that $150 to $200 range, I think the Air Jordan 33 is something you should definitely put on your list. And we'll see a lot of NBA players in it this year as well. So that'll be exciting, seeing some of the PEs that come out of Jordan brand for the athletes, especially since they can wear whatever they want this year as far as colors go. I should let me clarify that. They can wear whatever colors they want this year during the games. That's very specific. But moving on, talking about materials still in sneakers, Tiffany found this one, and I'm really excited about it. I think it sounds really cool. There are mushroom leather materials made out of mushrooms, obviously, but it's super interesting. And Tiffany, I'm going to let you lead on this one because I feel like I'm just going to destroy all the facts that can come out of this. And it's probably better that you provide actual information as opposed to me rambling on about fibers, textiles, leathers, sustainables, and fungus. So I'll let you go ahead and take over.
Although I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, right? I'm just saying.
Yeah, so I've noticed this trend where people are starting to talk about fungus-based leathers, right? Or mushroom leathers. And so this company, Nat2, actually, so NAT-2, came out with a fungi line of shoes where they're using this mushroom leather. Now, the rest of the shoe has like environmentally friendly materials in it also, but specifically this mushroom leather was fascinating. So they're particularly using a fungus tree, but this other group called Myco Works, and they're in the Bay Area, they started making leather from mushrooms. Now, their leather is actually, so the whole reason that these people are looking at replacing leather is because the leather process, I mean, although it's renewable, right, because the animals, you can grow them and make more animals, but it's coming from an animal, and the actual process of tanning the leather uses chemicals like chromium and a ton of water, and there's a ton of waste in it. So they're trying to basically replace leather because people love leather, right? It's the material, how it wears, the durability of it, how it looks, and even how it smells on some level. So Nike came out with fly leather, right, which is their kind of replacement for leather, which is more sustainable. But this company, Myco Works, is growing fungus mushroom leather, and they're growing it so fast. Basically, they can grow a hide of leather. So imagine a cow hide of leather. It's pretty large. A cow hide takes 2 years to grow. In their YouTube videos, they're saying they're growing the fungus version of this leather in 2 weeks. So they're going from 2 years down to 2 weeks. Now, their leather isn't quite as strong or durable as cowhide. They said it's equivalent to the strength of deer hide, and I know deer hide is softer, deer leather's softer, lamb, goat, that's all softer than cow, but I just thought it was amazing that these mushrooms are growing enough in 2 weeks to provide an entire cowhide of leather that can be used on goods instead of cows.
Wait, is this just one mushroom that's growing to the size of a cow?
I don't know about that. Like they don't get specifically like what they're doing, but it looks like that. It looks like that based on the video. You know, check out their YouTube page. It's Myco, MyCoWorks, Myco Works, and they're also making bricks out of it. So there's more articles in that. Like they make bricks that replace like concrete bricks that are made to build houses. Yeah, wow, like that's how amazing. Strong this stuff is. It's crazy, right? Like we're all gonna be wearing mushrooms in no time.
That's
it. Really is like kind of interesting to think about why we're so kind of infatuated with leather as consumers, because I agree, like the reasons that you stated, right? Like the feel, the durability, kind of like the way that it wears, all those things are so unique about the way like really nice leather products age. And I think this is really fascinating to me, and probably even, you know, talking about building bricks, but like I immediately think of like car stuff, Tiffany, where, you know, there's so many variations of fiber-based products that also like just become, you know, like carbon fiber or whatever becomes so much stronger. I wonder like how, as this kind of focus on creating something that is familiar to everybody, but also eventually they're gonna find ways to make this that much more stronger. And you're probably right, we might all be wearing like mushroom stuff soon.
They can engineer this. So they're like, if you look on their website, they can engineer it to have the texture you want. Colors are like limitless, and the different material qualities, like I just think it's amazing, and I think it'll actually probably replace a lot of leathers. You know, I mean, people are still going to eat beef, so we'll still have leather as a byproduct. But you know, this could be a fascinating material. You know.
Yep.
So is something like this? Is it biodegradable as well? Oh, it's 100% biodegradable materials.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll
amazing.
get to a point, right? I think it says something like wood fibers are part of this particular version, right? But I'm sure we'll get to a point where, you know, the priority will shift and you'll be looking at things that need to have more durability, and eventually they'll, you know, mix things kind of to extend the durability or the wear or the strength of that particular product. But because it's so easy to make and such a shorter duration to make, then I mean, it just becomes almost like limitless. And then obviously throw on the color on top of that. There's so many things, even outside of just like, you know, say footwear or fashion, that this kind of stuff could be really, really like amazing for it, especially if they're able to, like, you know, kind of engineer it all the way through. It might take, I mean, it could replace plastic in a lot of, you know, odd scenarios, I would imagine.
Not even odd, I'll bet common. Like they even mentioned that, right? That they can grow textures in and like, oh man, I can't wait to see where this company takes this. I'll definitely be checking out their website to find more, but yeah, mushrooms, guys. Who'd have thought?
Who would have thought? Yeah, I'm interested in learning about this deer leather and like how durable that is. Is that something that you can use for, like, that? Does it have, like, I'm gonna throw out a big word here and act like I know what it means. Like, what's the tensile strength of deer leather versus cow leather? Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong there, Tiffany.
No, you can float on that. You can float on that.
Yes. Yes. So that's what I'm interested in, because I don't recall hearing anything about deer leather before.
Oh yeah.
Or something made out of deer leather. I feel like I'm sure that there's stuff on market that's made out of it, and it's probably crazy expensive. That's why I've never heard of it, because it's out of my price range. But I'd be interested to find out more. I imagine like a woman's purse made out of deer leather would feel amazing, or something like that, or maybe like a belt. Maybe I don't even know if a belt would work, because I feel like that's
so they call it deer skin, right? Is what it's like. Like there's a differentiation between leathers and skins, and so like calf skin, deer skin. Like I don't know that you necessarily have deer leather, but and then you have lamb and goat, and so like lamb skin is like super soft. Right, it's like the weakest, and it's really soft. Goat's very, very fine too, and also thin. But then, you know, like deer's a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger, but it still kind of has that softness to it. And then you have calf skin and then cow skin. And cow, you know, gets split. So there's two layers to it. There's full grain, which is the top layer, and the bottom layer is split leather. So, like, if you look at the materials in your shoes, a lot of time it'll say split leather, it'll say full grain leather, it'll say calf skin, or it'll say deer skin. I don't recall. I mean, I remember using deer skin quite a bit for linings or different things on some very special shoes, but I don't know that we ever went to market with a deer skin shoe. But I would almost say leather or lamb and goat are more expensive than deer.
I know. There's like a lot of like boots, not like boots, but like more like I guess fashionable, you know, shoes, kind of like the in between of like what I would say is traditional hard bottoms and boots, like those kind of like chukkas, and a lot of those I've seen in deerskin.
All right. Well, keeping with alternative means of doing things, let's transition to music and make it super awkward. So from mushrooms to music, there's a story today, and this is for all you artists out there, myself included, that Spotify is going to allow you to upload music yourself. Now, this is a big deal because it prevents the middleman from basically taking money from you, is how I see it. Previous up till now, in order for an artist to get his or heard music on Apple or Spotify or Google, they had to go through a middleman before they could upload their music to the service. But Spotify is removing that barrier and allowing you to upload music to yourself. Right now, it is in a limited beta, so everyone can't do it quite yet. But I think this is a step in the right direction. There's so many independent artists these days, so many artists that are doing things on their own, paying for their own productions, and that own all of their music and everything, and doing everything as a one-man band or one-man person. And this will allow them to kind of cut out the middleman and make more money for themselves, which I only see as a good thing. Now, there will be a flood of music on Spotify now that you probably won't listen to. But that comes along with the territory of enabling artists to have a better control over their futures and over the product that they send out, which I think is a good thing, personally.
I do too. I think this is a step in the right direction. Spotify is definitely one of the more, one of the, I would say, top 3 or 4 streaming platforms for music, obviously, but beyond that, even there's a lot of video content on there now. I do think that I think it's great that they're actually just moving this into a beta, because as much as creators want to put stuff out there, it becomes there's a challenge in managing those, let's say, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands of uploads potentially. If you wanted to, this kind of thing is going to encourage people to create more, right? So if, let's say, an artist wants to create a new track every day for the next 365 days, inevitably there's going to be challenges in whatever that looks like. Anybody that's creating wants to have numbers, wants to have feedback, wants to have access to, data and, stats that you can pull and compare and contrast how things work. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of all of this. Just like SoundCloud has been that place for a long time, but this probably puts them on edge, because why they don't there's a lot of great stuff on SoundCloud, like Outside the Box, but obviously
True.
Spotify has they've been a really successful business, especially in terms of working on both sides of the music business, which this gives even more advantage to kind of the more entry level or do it yourself artists to put it on Spotify, because SoundCloud doesn't quite have that. Even though it's the trendy SoundCloud rappers and everybody wants to be there right now, at the end of the day, there's a huge business opportunity for musicians and artists to do what they do and make money at it. And Spotify has a much bigger system behind the scenes, in my opinion, than SoundCloud. So this is kind of exciting to see. I'll be curious to see how SoundCloud kind of comes back and responds, and potentially I think competition is just good for everybody. So
yeah, I will say, as awesome as I think this is, I still think that streaming services don't pay artists enough. I'll still put that out there. It's great that they're doing this, but streaming services, I do feel, don't pay artists what they're due for the sort of service that they provide. But that's a different topic entirely, and I'm not here.
And like you said, hopefully, hopefully this cuts the middleman out and allows artists to make more money. We did we talk about that? I think we talked about that last week, right? The laws are kind of changing around how people get paid, who gets paid. So you have writers that are getting paid now, might be minimal, but if everybody's knows that they're going to actually get paid from something, there's a lot more opportunity to collaborate, work together, and actually create something that could go much further than just one individual or one group putting something out there.
Absolutely. And for the last story, this is just a random one that I saw today. There was a kid that was his boat sort of thing. He I think this was in Thailand. He fishes for a living, and his the part of the boat that he was on detached from its anchor, and he was floating out at sea for 49 days, and he survived.
What?
I just want to put it out there now. Just say goodbye to me if that happened to me.
Yeah.
Just know that I would not make it for 49 days. It's incredible. I think he was like a 19-year-old kid, and his boat or whatever it was, it detached from the anchor, floated out to sea. He saw 10 ships before he was rescued, and he basically caught fish, which was his job, and ate the fish, and that he was filtering water through his clothes to remove some of the salt from the ocean, and was drinking that, and he was able to survive for 49 days. So I see that as a big kudo to the human spirit of what you can do if you don't give up and keep trying. I just find that this story was just amazing to me, and I just wanted to make sure I shared that and put that out there. Anyway, with that being said, I think that's going to be the end of the show today. This is another great episode of Outside the Box. I am Jacques Slade. You guys can find me at Cousteau all over the internet. That's Kustoo. That's on Twitter. That's on Instagram. That's on the YouTubes, if you've ever heard of those things. And as I always say, this show would not be what it is without the other two people on this show. If we were three kids in one household, I am the bad middle child that's always messing things up. I'm the one searching for love and attention, while the other two get it because they're just amazing human beings. With that being said, this is Tiffany. This is Nick. Nick, tell them where they can find you.
At Nick Engvall on all platforms, NickEngvall, or at Sneaker History, sneakerhistory.com. But like I said at the beginning of the show, the real reason we're here is just because we feel cool talking to Tiffany. Tiffany, let them know how they can find you.
True.
Oh, you too. You can find me at Tiffany Beers, TiffanyBeers on Instagram and YouTube. And, Jacques' story of this teen surviving 49 days on a boat, that is why I don't do boats. No boats. No boats. Just no boats.
Well, technically, it wasn't a boat. It was technically a fishing trap, a floating fishing trap, known locally as a rompong. So it's actually in Indonesia, not Thailand.
No floating
just putting
items.
that out there.
No floating
No
items.
floating items at all. No
floating.
floating. You're done. So if you're on a floating item and listening to the show, we thank you for listening. And for those that aren't on floating items and listening to the show, you can find us online during the week at Outside Pods. That's on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, you can find us on SoundCloud. You can find us on Google. You can find us on iTunes. And you can find us probably in the streets, because that's the kind of life we live. We're thugs like that. As always, guys, we appreciate you. Thank you for listening, and we'll see or talk to you next week. Peace.